December 20th, 2018, the island of Anguilla. 6 friends are ringing in the new year together, spending time on the beach in Island Harbor. Before the week is over, 2 of the 6 are dead, and the other 4 aren't talking. But these families want answers from the Anguillan police force, the coroner, and most importantly, the 4 who came home. This is the story of Casey Pomeroy MacPherson and Caleb Guillory. Poisoned in paradise, or was it murder? Hey y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Pottorff. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our Armenian friends, and I do have some Armenian friends, actually. Barigalust.
Good job.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good job or not. I'll have to ask our friend Howard Kazanjian if I said that right.
Oh, there you go. Hey, Howard.
Yeah.
Well, wherever you're listening, be sure to like, rate, and review the podcast. That helps other people to find us.
Yep.
Christmas is over.
Yes, it is.
I ate way too much. Now we're in that purgatory element between Christmas and New Year's where nobody knows what day it is or how much they've eaten, or at least that's for me. I overeat this week.
All I know is I've eaten way too much.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed every second of it.
It has been frigid in the United States.
Oh, my gosh.
We've been cold. I'm wearing like my very warm, comfy sweater today.
We reached a wind chill of minus 31.
Yeah.
Minus
in
31.
Kentucky, y'all. That's a lot.
Ridiculous.
Now, it's going to be 50 in 3 days.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's our kind of weather. Yeah. I hope everybody has stayed warm. I hope everyone has had a wonderful Christmas.
Yep.
And we're just going to press on and talk murder.
Merry Christmas. Here's some murder.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Here's some murder. Yeah.
Okay.
This case actually takes place on an island that we've been to, honey.
Yes.
Anguilla.
Yeah. We've been
It's
there.
beautiful.
It is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. And this is still a case that tons of people talk about, and everyone, the families are very upset. There are a lot of people who are very close-lipped about it. I'm going to give you all kinds of information if you want to go down a really deep rabbit hole.
Okay.
I'll post a lot of it in the In-Laws and Outlaws. Speaking of which, that's our closed Facebook group. If you haven't joined, go join the In-Laws and Outlaws.
Please
3
do.
questions, you're in. We have a lot of fun in there.
Yep.
It's our family.
And as a matter of fact, our Bless Your Heart comes from an in-law outlaw person today.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Before we get started, I want to thank some sources: murderinparadise.org, People Magazine, The Cinemaholic, Facebook group Justice for Casey and Caleb, KTVL News, True Crime, Real Crime Podcast, the Royal Anguillan Police Force Criminal Investigation Department, the U.S. Courts Barbara MacPherson-Pomeroy versus North American Company for Life and Health Insurance, Crime Recall and Investigation Discoveries, Still a Mystery, Best Lives Cut Short.
That's a lot of info.
There's a lot of info out there. A lot of people have got an opinion about this case.
All right.
So I hopefully all of our listeners will form an opinion as well.
Yeah. Well, let's do it.
Casey MacPherson-Pomeroy was born on January 12th, 1981 in Oregon. He grows up in Eagle Point, Oregon, with stepfather Chuck Pomeroy and his mother, Paulette.
Okay.
He has an older sister, Debony. When Casey's 9 years old, he meets Caleb Guillory. Caleb is born on June 21st, 1981. He also is born in Oregon. But after these two meet, they soon meet the third of the 3 amigos, Chuck Gross.
Okay.
And all 3 of these boys are pretty much inseparable from everything I read about, especially Casey and Caleb, who just lived down the road from each other. I also read that those two were like night and day, Caleb and Casey. Caleb was very shy. He had a really big heart. He was very loving. And Casey, on the other hand, was very outgoing, and he loved being in the spotlight.
Okay.
I even read that when he would cut school in high school to go snowboarding, his teachers would take off with him.
Oh, jeez.
Like, he's a very likable guy.
Wow.
And Casey's a good-looking kid. I mean, man, too, I should say.
Mhm.
He looks like a model. He looks like an Abercrombie model to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
If you grew up in the 90s, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I read a post in Reddit by one of his friends. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole, I will also put a link to that.
Okay.
But here's what he said about Casey. Quote, he entered every room with the most contagious and beautiful smile that would automatically make your heart burst with joy, end quote.
Wow.
Yeah. So his friends really loved him,
Yeah.
which was a deviation from the he lit up a room.
Right.
You know, everybody always says, if I get murdered, don't go on 2020 and say she lit up a room, because I don't light up a room. Yeah. I think he's a guy's guy. He was really good looking. He was very funny. He had a witty personality. So what do you do with all that? Well, you become an actor.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's got to be in showbiz.
You become an actor.
Yeah.
In 2004, best friends, Casey and Caleb had their lives go in different directions. Casey moves to Fresno, California, and takes a job with a pharmaceutical company. I also read that he worked for a sign company, too. So maybe both over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But he started his acting career. He would go back and forth between Fresno, where his sister, Debony MacPherson-Udall, lived, to L.A. to audition, which is like a 3-hour drive.
Okay.
His stage name was Casey Scott MacPherson, so no Pomeroy, which I think was probably, he used that as an act of respect to his stepfather
Sure.
who helped to raise him.
Right.
In 1987, he played a cop on The Bold and Beautiful, which is a daytime soap.
Right.
He's listed on IMDb for The Perfect House, which is a horror flick, as an executive producer under the name Casey Scott. And he did an episode of The Hotel Barclay as the character Jameson.
Okay. So
And
he's done some roles.
He's done some roles. So if you don't know what IMDb is,
It's the Internet Movie
it's
Database.
the Internet Movie Database.
Yeah.
Rob is on there. So it just lists all of your credits in
Yeah.
one spot.
Yeah, it's kind of what we use to advertise ourselves to producers and directors, and then they can look and see how legit you are.
Yeah, and what you've done. And
Yeah.
he does have these few things on his IMDb.
Yeah.
A year after moving to California, he meets Barbara Finson at a conference. And if I'm putting two and two together, nobody said it was a pharmaceutical sales conference, but this is where I think they met, at a pharmaceutical conference of some sort, because Barbara is a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
These two enjoyed the same things, the outdoor, traveling, and Barbara is 22 years older than
wow.
Casey.
Wow. She's a cougar.
But I've seen her photos, and she certainly does not look like she's in her 50s.
Okay.
But when these two marry on September 22nd, 2012, Casey is 31 and Barbara is 53.
Wow.
Yeah. Go, Barbara. Go, Barbara.
I'm not going to say
Barbara.
anything.
Go, Barbara. Just kidding. Everyone, don't email me when we get to the end of this story and you don't like Barbara. That was a joke. Now, because she's a nurse practitioner and he's an actor/salesman, they're both on the road a lot.
Right.
And I've read in more than one source that when Casey is in LA between the year 2010 and 2014, he led a completely different life.
How?
According to his agent and friend, Chris Montgomery, Casey dated.
Oh, wow.
He saw other women. He went out with his LA friends. Nobody knew he had a wife. Apparently, he would also go to Vegas and hook up with chicks. And
Wow.
yeah. Now, this is all going to come out later, but I wanted to mention it now. And
Okay.
I just have one word for it. Hinky.
Okay.
Yeah. Your husband's living a separate life.
Yeah.
Yeah. By 2016, Casey still hadn't had his big break yet in the movie business. And a couple of years later, I can only imagine at the coaxing of his nurse practitioner wife, Casey tells his family that he's moving to Anguilla and he's going to medical school.
Really?
So if you can't be an actor, be a doctor.
Wow.
If you can't play one on TV, just be
I was
one.
going to say, did he play one on TV on The Bold and Beautiful?
No, he was a cop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But Casey enrolls at the St. James School of Medicine. And St. James was established in Anguilla in 2011 and is actually headquartered in Park Ridge, Illinois.
What?
Yeah. So I have known some doctors in my day. This is a thing. You go to school outside of the United States. You come back to the United States and do your residency. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what he's doing. He's
Why do
going
they
to
do
medical
that?
school in Anguilla. Well, some people can't get into, Harvard Medical
okay.
School or
All right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And some people just want to go where there's a beach.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
But as long as they, medical school, I think is medical school. This is just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you can go through a residency program and pass your boards and you're a board certified doctor, that's what you always want is a board certified doctor.
As long as you know where the lung and spleen is, you're in good shape.
Where the heart is, the brain, all of that stuff. But if you're unfamiliar with Anguilla, it's a British territory in the Eastern Caribbean. It's east of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and directly north of St. Martin, which is also beautiful. All of those places are beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
The island is only 16 miles long by 3 miles wide at its largest point, at its widest point. It's really small, and it's got a total population of about 16,000 residents. And the main industry is tourism.
That makes sense.
That's important.
Okay.
That's called foreshadowing.
Uh-oh.
So in July of 2018, Casey tells his family, we're moving and I'm going to med school. And in August of 2018, Casey and Barbara head to Anguilla. Before they leave, his mother hugs and kisses him. And he says to her, Mom, it's not like we're never going to see each other again. Now, I do this with my own children because they don't live here. And I will hug them super tight. And they're like, you're choking me, Mom. I'll see you in a couple months.
Yeah.
But that's what she's saying. She's hugging him tight. And he's like, it's not like we're not going to see each other again. But they're not going to see each other again.
Oh, no.
Also, before they leave, Barbara and Casey both increase their life insurance policies. That is also called foreshadowing.
And hanky.
But not much time between announcing, I'm going to medical school and giving up acting and actually picking up and moving. So it's a pretty quick thing.
Sure.
I did read in one source where Barbara was kind of on him, like, I'm the main breadwinner. And nurse practitioners make good money. Nurses make good money. Nurses are invaluable, especially in the last few years. We've worked them to death.
Yep.
But they're invaluable. And I think she was making the money while he was trying to make it as an actor.
Right.
And she was kind of getting tired of that. I mean, she's a grown woman. She's 53 years old.
Right.
She's like, it's time to put away your toys and get down to business.
Yep.
So, which is kind of why I think that maybe she's the one who thought that he should do medical school.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I don't know if Barbara was planning on working in Anguilla or not, but it would make sense to me that she was because nurse practitioners are always in demand, like I just said. And on a small Caribbean island, she would be invaluable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But these two have fun on the weekends after they move to Anguilla. They're exploring the island, and Casey settles into medical school. And by December of 2018, Casey's finished his first semester, and it's time for Christmas break. And to celebrate, Casey calls his best friend from home and childhood buddy, Caleb Guillory, and Chuck Gross, and their wives to come to the beautiful island of Anguilla and stay with him and Barbara for the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Nice.
Exactly what we're doing right now, this week.
Except we're not in Anguilla.
But we're not in Anguilla, and it's butt-ass cold outside. And this is a time when loads of people take a little vacation to finish out the year, right? In between Christmas at home, then the day after they go off to go ski or go to the beach. Or if you're like us, you're just trying to recover from shopping and cooking and celebrating.
And overeating.
Mm-hmm. But vacationing together wasn't anything new for Casey, Caleb, and Chuck because these three had traveled together as adults a lot, with wives, without wives, but this time the wives are coming too.
Okay.
Casey and Barbara had rented a spacious 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment near the water in Island Harbor, Anguilla, and were excited for their friends to come and visit and experience the island life that they now had. And Caleb and his wife, Carly, went to relax because Carly was about to start some medical treatments after the new year. I don't know for what, but Caleb's uncle is quoted as saying, quote, her doctor told her to go relax and have a good time. It'll be good for you, end quote.
Okay.
So here's the scene. I want to set the scene for you. These 6 have been enjoying themselves on the week in between Christmas and New Year's Day, 2019. And on December 30th, By the way, that's my birthday,
It is your
December
birthday.
30th.
It's coming up.
It's coming up. Yeah, I'm 1 year older.
Another trip around the sun.
But on December 30th, these 6 have been having fun in the sun. They go out to dinner, have some drinks. And then according to Barbara, this is according to the claim on Casey's life insurance policy and Barbara's attorney, Marshall Whitney, Barbara, Casey, and Caleb stopped at an outdoor beach bar on the night of December 30th, 2018. And they bought one single rum and Coke that was left unattended while they went to look for Casey's lost flip-flop. So these 3 are at a beach bar, which are wonderful, by the way. Love a good beach bar.
Yeah.
The 3 of them order one rum and Coke. And after they order it, Casey says, blast, I've lost a flip-flop. I've got a flip, but not a flop.
Right.
So the 3 of them walk away from this rum and Coke and they start looking for Casey's lost flop.
I've lost this one's fellow.
This one's other fellow. Exactly.
And if you know what movie that's from, go ahead and post it.
Well, there you go. I have no idea if they find his shoe or not, but the rest of the story is up for debate, and it still has more holes than Swiss cheese.
Okay.
Another story, the one I think which is more plausible, is that all 6 of them were at the bar and they walked away down the beach heading back to Barbara and Casey's apartment. And this is when Casey realizes that, I've lost a shoe or both shoes, both flip-flops.
Right.
So Caleb and Casey walk back to the bar and Barbara will later say that she went with them. And when they get back to the bar, they order again one rum and Coke, which they leave unattended while they look for the flip-flops. And upon finding said flip-flops, they pick up their rum and Coke and start walking back to the apartment while sharing one rum and Coke.
Okay. That's okay, whatever.
Now, what happens after this is still a mystery. Some of the known facts are that at 9:49 p.m., Alicia Gross goes to a neighbor's house and calls police from Casey and Barbara's apartment building to report, quote, one of her friends is not breathing, end quote.
Okay.
And they request an ambulance. And when the Royal Anguilla Police Department and the EMTs arrive at the apartment, they find Caleb, quote, motionless in the living room area, lying on his back on the floor, end quote.
Okay.
Caleb is already dead.
Really?
This is when they see Casey in the bedroom. He's having a seizure. So they rushed him to Princess Alexandria Hospital, where Casey will die later, 15 minutes after the seizure begins.
Okay. I'm thinking of scenarios now, so go ahead.
Now, the families are told that when they arrived back at the apartment, Caleb started having convulsions, and then someone did CPR on him. Now, you would think that someone would be a nurse practitioner, right? Barbara.
Yeah.
Well, it's never really said who did the CPR, although I read that it was maybe Casey. But Caleb is on the floor and he's dead. Casey's in the bedroom. He starts having a seizure. They take him to the hospital. He dies, right? Well, Barbara tells police that she also drank from the cup and that she had thrown up. But according to police, the others, Barbara, Carly, Caleb's wife, and Alicia Gross and husband Chuck, all appeared to be very absent-minded while all this is taking place around them. The EMTs, the police, they're like, these people don't seem right. So they're all taken to the hospital to be checked out. But after they get an A-OK from the hospital, the 4 of them are taken into police custody.
Sure. Got to get questioning.
And if you've ever seen the show Locked Up Abroad, this cannot be good.
Yeah.
This can't be good.
Yeah. You don't want to get apprehended in foreign soil.
No.
It's not good.
Especially tiny little islands.
Yeah.
The families back in the United States, they find out the next day, December 31st, 2018. And the families of Casey and Caleb are both devastated.
Sure.
But they don't have any answers. They don't have, they don't know the who, what, when, where, and why about what happened to their loved ones.
Right.
And the families can't seem to get in touch with Barbara, Carly, Caleb's wife, or the other couple, Chuck and Alicia Gross. That's because they're all in jail.
Oh, gee.
They're being questioned. And according to the 4 remaining, Barbara, Carly, Chuck, and Alicia, they were in separate cells with no food or water and a cold, hard floor to sleep on, a hole in the middle of the floor for a toilet, and temperatures in the 60s at night with no blanket.
Wow.
According to Barbara, the four of them had to pay $10,000 each or $40,000 in order to be released from the Royal Anguillan Police Department.
Wow.
And apparently, Chuck Gross and Chuck's dad made this happen for all four of them.
Wow.
They are released on January 4th, 2019. So the same day, January 4th, 2019, Debony, Casey's sister, she finally gets in touch with Chuck Gross. And according to her, Chuck was, quote, an absolute train wreck, end quote, on the phone.
I'm sure.
And according to Casey's sister, Debony, Chuck kept skipping around in his account of what happened that night. I mean, someone you love is dead, your brother's dead, and you want to know what happened, and this person can't give you a cohesive story.
Yeah.
Not to mention, he says nothing about the $40,000 at the time. And later they're going to say that they were just fearful for their lives. That's why they had to give up the $40,000.
Okay.
Now, the next day, Barbara calls Debony, and she tells her that when the three of them went back to the beach bar to get the flip-flops, the one rum and Coke they all shared must have been poisoned.
Right.
And they carried this rum and Coke back to the apartment.
Okay. I'm still kind of confused about why they had just one rum
You're
and
not
Coke.
the only one.
Okay, all
You're
right.
not the only one.
All right.
Now, when Casey's family hears this, they're like, no way. This is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Casey was way smarter than to leave a drink unattended and then come back and drink it.
Yeah.
Not only would he not drink something that he had left unattended, Casey and Caleb would have never shared a drink. They would have each had their own rum and Coke.
Right. Right.
Yeah. They'd just get their own cocktail.
Yeah.
And remember, this is a family that has known Caleb since he was 9 years old.
Right.
This family thinks it's hinky.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hinky, I tell you.
Of course it is.
Then Casey's family doesn't hear from Barbara for another 3 days. Barbara calls Paulette, Casey's mother, and tells her that she is so sorry and she wants to, quote, bring Casey home. Autopsies are performed and completed on January 7th, 2019, not in Anguilla, but in nearby St. Martin. They've moved these bodies. Meanwhile,
why did they do that?
Because they didn't have a coroner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this
All
is a
right.
town of 16,000 people, one little hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a hop, skip, and a jump to the next island.
Sure.
So,
No,
yeah.
I understand now.
Meanwhile, Casey's family is trying to get Barbara and Casey's body, along with Caleb's and the others, home to the United States.
Sure.
And a friend of the family who has a private plane offers to fly into Anguilla to pick them all up and the 2 dead bodies of Casey and Caleb. But on the same day that the autopsies are finished, these 2 wives, Barbara and Carly, they decide they're going to have their husbands' bodies cremated
Okay.
on the island.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Okay.
They wanted to get the heck fire out of there. And Barbara tells Casey's family that it would be too difficult and it would take a lot of money to get the bodies out of there and back to the United States. And they're fearful for their lives
Why are they fearful for their lives?
because they've been in jail.
I know that, but just to get the bodies out there, they're, okay, whatever. Go ahead.
At the time, Casey's family is trusting that Barbara is making good decisions. I mean, they're not there,
Right.
so they just have to trust her.
Sure.
Although I can tell you, my ass would be on the first plane to Anguilla. I mean, as
Yeah.
soon as I found out somebody was dead, I
Yeah.
would be on the first plane.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the cremation impacts any future criminal investigation. No body, even if it's cremated, no crime.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing to test for anything.
Sure.
All they're going to have is what's left of the autopsy reports and the coroner's report. A week later, on January 15th, 2019, Barbara, Carly, and Chuck and Alicia Gross are back stateside. When they make it back, the whole gang goes to see Casey's family. I have no idea if the same thing happened with Caleb's family or not. I just know that this happened with Casey's family.
Okay.
But at the Pomeroy MacPherson home, they all show up, but only Barbara does the talking. So the 4 remaining who are still alive from the trip all come together, but only Barbara talks.
This is getting more weird.
And she tells the story. They were all out. Casey forgot his flip-flops. Casey and Caleb and Barbara all go back to look for them. And while they're there, The three of them order one rum and Coke, which they then leave unattended while they look to find the flip-flops. Then they proceed to walk down the beach back to the apartment, all drinking the same rum and Coke. And after they reach the apartment, Caleb seizes and dies, and then Casey starts to have a seizure as well and dies at the hospital. Barbara, who also drank from the cup, vomits, so she doesn't die. She tells them about the police corruption and how they had to pay $40,000 to get the police to let them out. Now, there is no record of a wire transfer of $40,000 anywhere.
Really?
And Barbara will not say who they paid the $40,000 to.
So did that even happen?
You tell me. I don't know.
Geez.
It's one of those unknowns.
Okay.
Before this group leaves Casey's parents' home, Barbara says, quote, "Hey, do not talk about this. Don't publicize it. You'll cause problems," end quote.
Oh, wait, she said that to who?
Casey's family, her dead husband's family. Don't talk about this. Don't publicize it. You'll cause problems.
Okay.
So what about the investigation into their deaths? I mean, his family's sitting here going, you're leaving us just tons of questions and no answers. Where are the autopsy reports so they can see what poisoned their son or brother? All they have are Casey's ashes and Barbara's story.
Yeah. Wow.
Barbara also emailed some of her friends where she gave a similar story, but this time she tells her friends that she and Chuck Gross were initially charged with manslaughter by the Anguillan police, but that they did not follow through in prosecuting them.
Why wouldn't they follow through if they thought
Because of the $40,000? I don't know.
Okay.
But the family's not buying it, and by the end of May 2019, Barbara has cut all ties with Casey's family. She's not talking to her late husband's family. But this family wants answers.
Yeah.
And in October of 2019, Casey's family has a fundraiser because they have hired TJ Ward. And if that name sounds familiar, he's the private investigator who worked on the Natalie Holloway case.
Oh, okay.
So they want TJ Ward to do a deep dive into the death of Casey and Caleb. But when they hold this fundraiser, Barbara and Carly both, the two widows, they sent a statement that read in part, quote, "We find their pursuits to be replete with misstatements and believe they are unproductive. We are cooperating with the appropriate authorities and do not support or sanction this event in any way," end quote.
Wow.
Nothing. That's like very formal for nothing to see here, move along.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now both of these families, Casey and Caleb's families, want answers. And the police in Anguilla and the U.S. State Department will only speak with the widows. They'll only talk to the wives, Barbara and Carly, because they are officially the next of kin.
Okay.
And Paul Morrison, who is the island police commissioner, says that they need to have an inquest about the deaths of Casey and Caleb, and they cannot do that without Barbara, Carly, Chuck, and Alicia Gross. And these four refuse to go back to the island for the inquest.
Okay. And I'm sure that they said they wouldn't go back because they were afraid that they would be.
I don't know how much contact they have.
Yeah.
I think they just said, we're not going.
Yeah.
So Casey's family and Caleb's family now have a private investigator, TJ Ward, on the case. And the family gets an investigator on the island to do some digging. And what he comes up with is Casey and Caleb's death certificates and a copy of the police report, something that this family has never had. And here's what they find.
Okay.
These two, despite the story Barbara has woven, did not die the same. If they were both poisoned from the same cup, then they should have the same autopsy results as a cause of death, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
No, not so fast.
Okay.
First off, the toxicology report showed that they both had MDA, or methylene dioxyamphetamine.
Wow, there's a mouthful.
I think I said that right. In their bloodstream. MDA's street name is Sally. MDMA is Molly.
Molly, yeah.
But they're both a form of the drug of ecstasy.
Okay.
And they're both stimulants and psychedelics, but they cause different types of highs. MDA causes people to experience a heightened mood and positive feelings of empathy and affection for those around them. MDMA is considered more of a psychedelic and is associated with more of a loving high that does not last as long as MDA.
Okay.
but they found MDA in their systems. The usual recreational dosage of Sally will produce blood levels in the range of 100 to 250 nanograms per milliliter.
Okay.
And the toxicology report the family finally gets their hands on showed that Casey had 6,100 nanograms per
Holy
milliliter in his
cow.
blood.
Wow.
This is 24 times higher than a
Jeez.
recreational dosage of the drug.
Yeah, no wonder he died.
And he had cocaine in his system. Caleb also had lethal drugs in his system, but Caleb's death certificate says that he died from asphyxia, strangulation, and chest compression.
What?
Casey said that he died of seizure and cardiac and pulmonary distress. Both families have said that these guys did not do drugs. But one of them is dying from a heart attack, basically, from the
Right.
drugs.
Yeah.
And the other one from asphyxia and strangulation.
Yeah.
Now, the police report is even more interesting. Caleb was, quote, met motionless in the living room area, lying on his back on the floor. His right eye was swollen and was blue-black in color, end quote.
So he was in a fight?
Was he in a fight?
Yeah.
Now, the chest compression thing from the autopsy, okay. If somebody did CPR on him, you can bust a rib on
Sure.
somebody if you don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing and
It's
if
pretty
you're not doing
common.
the compressions correctly.
Right.
But the black eye,
Yeah.
none of it really adds up.
Yeah.
And even more interesting on the police report, quote, while on the scene, the police officers observed what appeared to be illegal substance inside the living area of the apartment. The scene was processed by the Royal England Police Force, and the said items were collected along with others as exhibits. Now, based on what was recovered, a search warrant was later executed at the apartment, and certain items were collected and later handed over, end quote.
Okay.
So did they find drugs?
Yeah.
Casey's death certificate said that he died of pulmonary edema, cardiac toxicity, cardiac ischemia, hypothermia, and seizures.
Hypothermia.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just reading straight from this
Wow.
death certificate. And Caleb's death certificate said that he died of asphyxiation, strangulation, both ligature and manual, multiple blunt force traumas, and seizures. Now, none of the surviving 4 who were present that night have offered any information on what these findings might mean or how they happened.
So,
They have not
Yeah.
said a word.
and I would love to know what the interrogation was like.
Well, apparently they were just thrown into cells, according to them.
They weren't even questioned?
Well, of course they were questioned.
Yeah. So where's
Yeah.
that transcript?
I don't know. Lost with the $10,000 per person?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
In the fall of 2019, the Anguillan coroner belatedly opened an inquest. In 2019.
Wow.
The end of 2019. So months later,
Right.
he opens this inquest. But the wives, Barbara and Carly, refuse to go back to the island. But not going back to the island has proved to be a little bit of a catch-22 for old Barbara. Because you see, on the day she's released from the Anguillan prison, the 4th of January, Barbara files a life insurance claim for the death of Casey
Oh, jeez.
for $1.5 million.
She couldn't even wait.
She couldn't wait.
Gosh.
I think she filed the life insurance claim before she even called his family.
Jeez.
But the insurance company won't pay. Barbara would need to return to Anguilla for the inquest, and she won't go. And then I read that because of COVID, Anguilla would allow you to testify for an inquest via video conferencing. And at this point, she agrees to testify, but under gag order, and that TJ Ward or Casey's family will never see any of the records.
Really?
Those are her stipulations.
Wow. That's kind of incriminating if you ask me.
Yeah, but I don't think this ever happens. And I'll tell you why in just a little bit.
Okay.
Barbara sued the insurance company for the $1.5 million. Quote, when the plaintiff's motion was filed, no criminal charges had been brought against Barbara or anyone else in the group that attended the beach bar on December 30th, 2018. Barbara maintains that she did not kill Casey. North American also alleges the basis for the purported risk of multiple liability, namely that the Royal Anguillan Police Force and the Anguillan Coroner's Court have declined to release, quote, any type of statement or additional information, end quote, because the case is still active. and the Anguillan Coroner's Court initiated an inquest to determine the manner or cause of Casey's death, but that the coroner has not resolved the inquest because the plaintiff, who is Barbara, has refused to testify at that inquest.
So we're at a
impasse.
Yeah, impasse.
We're at an impasse.
There you go. Yeah.
She's not talking, and they're not giving her money.
Yeah.
She's going to have to fight for it, which is what she's going to do.
Right.
Then in March of 2020, the insurance company deposited the funds, $1,504,346.75. They added interest. They put this into an account with the Register of the Court in Fresno, California.
Okay.
Now, there were two other names on the insurance policy, Melanie Rodriguez and Debony MacPherson-Udall, Casey's sister. Casey added them both to his life insurance policy in July of 2018. Melanie is his niece and Debony is his sister. They're both contingent beneficiaries, which is a backup in case your primary beneficiary, like Barbara, is unavailable or unable to be found or she's dead. It would be like naming your spouse as your primary beneficiary and your child as a contingent.
Right.
Melanie has backed way out of this and said, I'm not challenging this payment to Barbara.
Right.
But Debony is. Barbara MacPherson-Pomeroy is a, quote, person of interest in the case of Casey MacPherson-Pomeroy's death. And as such, if the inquest and ongoing police investigation determined his death was a homicide, Barbara MacPherson-Pomeroy was probably the perpetrator, either alone or in conjunction with others, and as a result, she is not permitted under California law to receive the life insurance proceeds under Probate Code 252.
She gets nothing.
So that is what Casey's sister is saying.
Gotcha.
This inquest hasn't happened. She's not going back.
Right.
She might be a killer. We don't know because she's not talking to anybody, so you can't give her the $1.5 million.
Exactly.
Well, the court eventually ruled otherwise.
What?
And on April 7th, 2022, they ruled that Barbara would get her $1.5 million minus $20,000 in court costs. And it was signed off by a U.S. district judge just last month, November 1st, 2022.
Wow.
Barbara got her money. And don't get me wrong. I mean, they were married. He had an insurance policy. She was the beneficiary. I don't think she murdered him, but I don't think a rum and coke was to blame for everything that happened that night.
Yeah.
There's no way. And I'm not alone. Maybe they were all doing drugs and whoever they bought them from gave them something more powerful than they thought they were taking.
Right.
Totally a possibility.
Right.
Was there a fight that night? Otherwise, why would Caleb have a black eye? Did the others have drugs in their belongings at the apartment? I read one report that said that Chuck Gross's wife had drugs in her belongings and that the police found them. If they paid off the authorities, and I'm not saying that this didn't happen, again, if you've ever seen Locked Up Abroad, it's scary. But if they did pay off the police and the authorities, was it to get out of their own drug charges?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe they thought, we already have 2 dead bodies. We just need to get out of here with our own lives intact.
Right.
I don't think that any of the 6 intended for anybody to die.
Right.
I think it happened, and I think they covered it up as best they could, and they don't want to talk about it for fear of incriminating themselves.
Sure. Well, and I was thinking, too, any good defense attorney, the black eye, that was the first thing I thought of. But if he was lying on the floor, if he passed out, I mean, he could have hit his eye.
Could have hit his face. He could have done all kinds
of
things.
Furniture, this and that. That would be the first thing that I would bring.
Yeah,
up.
but he's got ligature marks around his neck.
Yeah, that's pretty hard to explain.
he was choked to death.
Yeah.
So who did that?
Yeah.
And then what about Casey having this whole other life outside of his wife?
Yeah.
One that was only discovered after he was dead.
Right.
Because his agent came forward and said, hold the phone. Casey's married?
Yeah.
So Casey's family is like, okay, there was stuff that we didn't know. We didn't know exactly everything that was going on in his life. And now we don't know everything that was going on with his death.
Right.
Also, how far will a small Caribbean island whose main income is tourism go to make sure that the public doesn't think that Anguilla is a dangerous place to vacation?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Personally, I think it's D, all of the above.
Yeah.
And the sad part is that Casey and Caleb's families continue to search for answers. And 4 years later, they're no closer to closure than they were before.
Wow.
They'll never have closure for the deaths of their loved ones. You just don't. You don't get over it. You get through it.
And the only people that really know are those four.
The only people who know what happened that night are those four.
Yeah.
The only people who know what happened are, it's those four people.
Yep.
But I hope that someday and somehow they get the answers that they deserve. My heart goes out to Casey and Caleb's family on this anniversary of their deaths. They do have a webpage, a GoFundMe, and a Facebook group, Truth and Justice for Casey and Caleb. I will put links to all of those show notes. Casey and Caleb's families continue to search for answers.
Mm-hmm.
They're not stopping, even though Barbara's been paid.
Sure.
I think they were just trying to get her in for the inquest. Not, that was something they could hold over her head.
Right.
Every single source that I read, newspapers, NBC, People magazine, local television stations, on the anniversary of this death, both Caleb's wife and Barbara, they reached out to them for statements and got nothing, including Barbara hanging up on one source that they called it to ask questions. And when she found out who they were, they just hung up.
Yeah.
So they want nothing to do with it.
Sure.
Meanwhile, Casey and Caleb's family want everything to do with it.
Yeah.
So if you know something or you've heard something or you just want to help these families try to get to the bottom of this, there is a GoFundMe page. There is a Facebook group. You can go down that rabbit hole. But that is the story of Casey and Caleb. Murder in paradise, poisoned in paradise, death in paradise.
Yeah.
Who knows? But that's all I have to say about that. Hey, Hitched to Homicide listeners. This is Chris Calvert. I love doing research and writing about real crimes, but I also love writing about fictional people who commit horrible atrocities. When you're ready to take a break from true crime for fictional crime, go to chriscalvert.com, where you'll find all my books, including some free ones to get you started. Jane Doe is one badass chick who quietly hunts terrorists in the United States. The Sex and Lies books are all FBI and CIA cases with a little romance on the side. And coming summer 2022, Book 10 in the series, Sex, Lies, and Rock and Roll, releases. You can find all of these books everywhere, and if you like to listen instead of read, you can find them all on Audible. So go grab a free book or take a listen. I love all the characters I've written. I've given them pain, ruined their lives, make them suffer, and maybe even throw in a heroic death. Or maybe they live to fight another day. Check it all out at chriscalvert.com, and thanks for being a listener of Hitched to Homicide.
Wow, that's a really sad case.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And it's unsolved. I don't like doing unsolved cases.
Yeah.
But I just thought that this one, it's the anniversary of this case. These families don't have any answers. And I just thought I would bring some attention to it. I think it deserves that. I think this family deserves answers.
I agree. Well, in honor of being Christmas week or post-Christmas or whatever.
And Chris's birthday week.
Exactly.
Can we not? We can't forget. I feel like I'm 12 all over again and my birthday gets lost in the shuffle of Christmas and the new year.
Well, I've got to bless your heart for you.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Well, bless your heart.
Okay, so this one is called Man Accused of Attacking Wife with Christmas Tree when asked to help make dinner.
I will bring home the bacon, but I will not fry it up in a pan.
Not at all. And we'd like to thank our In-Laws and Outlaws member, Jennifer Leet, for this one.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, she posted this one up there. Lake County, Florida. A man in Florida is facing charges after throwing a Christmas tree at his wife, according to the Fruitland Park Police Department.
Fruitland Park.
I know. The arrest report states that Richard Atchison became angry when his wife asked for help making dinner Monday night.
How dare she?
I know. They started arguing, and Atchison told police he lost his temper when his wife allegedly slammed a spoon into hot food that splashed onto his face.
Oh, wah.
He told his wife he was leaving, packed his clothes, and then walked out to his truck. According, I know. It's like
I'm mad as hell and I'm not taking it anymore and I'm leaving you.
I'm going to my truck. According to the report, he came back inside since he had been drinking and told his wife to leave instead.
Oh, of course.
You get out of here. The arrest affidavit states she tried to leave, but Atchison pushed her away from the door, so she went into the living room. That's when Atchison allegedly picked up the Christmas tree and threw it at her.
Allegedly. How did it make it across the room? Allegedly.
Oh, there's Ghost. Atchison's wife went into the bedroom to separate herself from him and to call authorities for help, according to the arrest report.
I need help. My husband's throwing Christmas trees.
Yes.
I would be like, you're going to have to put all those ornaments back on.
Exactly. Oh, well, bless your heart.
Oh, that's the end of it.
That's it. That's it. She just called and said, come help me. I got a tree coming at me.
Was he arrested?
Christmas is coming early this year.
You know those police for like,
oh, I got to
go deal with this. Are you kidding me right now?
Oh, man. Well, there you go.
Well, if you have a bless your heart or you know somebody's heart who needs blessing, you can go to the Hitched to Homicide website. That's Hitched number 2, homicide.com. There's a little pull-down menu. You can give us a bless your heart. You can suggest a case. We're going to start going through a bunch of those in 2023.
Yep.
We're ready to start the new year. I hope everybody, I don't do resolutions. Don't believe in them.
No.
I just think you got to plow on forward.
Yep.
Everybody just do your best every single day.
Yep.
We're looking forward to seeing you guys in 2023. That's my amazing husband out there.
And that's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitched to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.
Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year.